Welcome to Coach Business, the podcast, where I'm your host and today interviewer, Caryn Gillen, and we're talking to Nikki McKnight, which means we're talking about all things ops, but I want to talk ops plus relationships, plus how does Nikki's amazing brain think about all these things? So, Nikki, is there anything you want to say as you introduce yourself? Make sure that they hear about you.
Ooh, hello. I the thought I kind of like to present to folks when we start thinking about operations and systems, because most people they hear those words and they immediately go, ugh.
Yeah.
It's like a little visceral reaction, like, I don't do that. That's not my thing. I hire it.
Right.
So being a big fan of like movies and TV shows and like production that I am, when I hear people say, "Oh, I want to be like so and so. I want to be like that person on stage, that person with the book, that person,
Mhm.
oh, I want to have a business like them." The reframe I like to start with is that which you seek to emulate is everything they have behind them that you can't see. And that's how they get to be the person that you idolize and want to be like. But
Because
the
we
reason
are
they can
all
do
just
that.
a collection of systems and tech that presents who we are.
Well, it's like, think about like what exists behind a person. They have, and it can be a person, it can be a structure, it could be a process, it could be a piece of software, it could be people, it could be experiences. Like there's
Hmm.
so much behind them, but a lot of times, you look at, I want to be that speaker and I want to have
Yeah.
that best-selling book. They're like, well, all I'm going to do is write and speak, and like that is for sure a part of it. But what has to be in place or for you to make a decision about that supports you
Hmm.
so that that's all you have to worry about. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about answering emails and invoicing and following up and doing outreach and finding those places to speak or having time to write. And then someone is going to worry about how to market that book and edit it and think about the back cover blurbs and the cover design and getting a street team and getting PR packages put together, like all of the things we don't see.
Yeah.
That's where I get really excited.
So you help people go from being a workhorse to a show pony.
Now I do. I really like that. I
But I
think
mean, that's that thought leader ideal,
mm,
right? Is to be the show pony, to be the one on the stage, to be the one
mhm.
all the people are working behind the scenes to get them
Mhm.
there, be on the thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With their with perhaps some like feathers and ribbons in their hair and like freshly brushed, and you have somebody who's like taking care of moving your stuff from show to show and you don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah.
Like the roadie for the show pony.
Right.
I like this metaphor. I'm
Okay.
I'm cool with it. Yeah, I think it's about um not only do you get to be the show pony, but you know that if you had to, you could manage everything else that comes with being the show pony. You could manage being the roadie. You could manage, understanding your booking agent and booking all the appointments to go get those beautiful ribbons put in your hair and being
Mhm.
groomed and all those things. Because the last thing I want people to do is kind of put their head in the sand, because I feel like you get to give up so much power and
Mm.
agency and decision making power when you try to ignore those things
Mhm.
instead of seeing it as an opportunity to understand a bigger picture and understand how to ask really great questions about the bigger picture, so that when you do have help, whether it's a person, a process, or a piece of software, you can be confident not looking at it because you kind of
Right.
understand the big picture and how it fits in and what it's supposed to do. So you can now trust that it's going to do what it needs to do.
I
And then
love
you
it.
get to
I
go
love
be show
trust.
pony. Yes,
Yeah.
trust is a big one.
Yeah. So good foundations create great show
Hmm.
ponies.
I like it. Put it on t-shirt. I'm done. Let's get
Okay.
merch.
Okay. So let's talk about like there's that transition that business owners go through. We're solopreneurs.
Mhm,
We're like seeing the people doing the things, writing the stuff, doing all the stuff we're all
mhm,
doing. And then there's a stage where it's time to like bring in the systems to free up the time
mhm,
and to make the customer's experience of you more cohesive, maybe better, maybe less
mhm.
balls get dropped. Like, how do we stay great and stay relational? Even actually, how do we be better with once the systems
Mm.
come in?
Ooh, I think the interesting bridge happens when we start to be aware that that is a bridge we have to build. And a lot of times we will kind of go into a little bit of like a reactive mode, or clearly I need this piece of software. I need to hire this job title. I need to do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes those can work, but if we don't have a lot of time already in our businesses because we're doing a lot of things, trying to then figure out what you need and then bringing that into your ecosystem and trying to figure out how you now fit into that ecosystem, it is a really challenging point. So instead, the key question I always like to ask myself, because for me, like a system is not a piece of software, it's not a piece of technology. A system is, how do we make decisions? So if that is what a system is designed to do, it's to help me make decisions. And hopefully those decisions are better than a previous one in whatever way better means to you. Hopefully it's done faster so that we don't, we're not letting things drag out and we continue to suffer or be overwhelmed or overburdened. So if that's the end point that I want, the question I will often ask myself is, what do I have to be, do, see, have, feel, or understand in order to make better decisions on a day-to-day basis?
Mhm.
How does my brain work? What do I need to see when I open my computer every day to feel like I'm in control of my day? What do I need to hear from a team member for me to trust that they have things well in hand and I don't have to have that part of my brain open to track what they're doing? What do I have to understand about the results I'm getting in the business right now to determine what I have to do next?
Mhm.
How do I feel on a day-to-day basis in the actions and energy I am expending? What is that? Because if I don't really have even I'll say a surface level understanding of that, then it doesn't matter what I bring into the business. It's not going to help me get closer to an answer for any of those. It's going to be a distraction, or it's going to be yet another thing I have to manage. And then the system doesn't become one of relief. It becomes an additional overwhelm
Right.
point.
Which I think a lot of us have felt and experienced.
Mhm.
If you have a kid in school and you get emails from the school, you know what I'm talking about.
And it's good when you as the aunt, me being an
Yeah.
aunt, when you start to get those emails. And wait, why am I involved in this?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a lot of email for aunt duty.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. So it's really like there's no, you're not leaving room for any accidental. And like, I feel like we're in the really broad space,
Mhm,
but it just reminds me of like, if I'm not hungry and you say, do you want Thai, Italian, or Swedish food?
mhm,
You're asking me the wrong question because I'm not actually hungry, right? I'm
mhm,
like, I could eat anything and it would be fine, but actually, I don't need anything right now. So oftentimes I see us looking for, I want the tech solution to do this thing because someone told me I needed it, or
mhm,
I got this because my friend had it. There's such a mismatch, but those questions
mhm.
that you just asked really point to why we're all setting up the wrong things. Yeah.
It is true because we look for, I don't even want to call it a quick fix, because there are some quick fixes that can genuinely be a quick fix and we recognize it as such. I think the challenge becomes when we let a quick fix duct tape moment become the way that we do things, because quick fixes aren't meant to last.
Mm,
If I'm working on a project right now and I'm like, I know this is not correct, but I'm just going to like set up this to do this thing right now because it's not elegant, it's not impactful. It's actually something else I'm going to have to manage in the future. But for now, I don't have to do it. Like maybe there's an automation for when a client signs on with you that you're like, this is not beautiful, this is not good, but like it's fine. I'm just going to do this manually, but get a trigger that does this. It's a quick fix. It gets you to the next day at least. But when you continue to pour time, money, and energy and people through that, and then we try to say, well, how do I make that quick fix better? How do I make that more efficient? That 6 months down the road is like, why am I still doing it this way at all?
mhm.
So having the opportunity to kind of stop and say, okay, going back to those questions of like, what is it that I need to know or have or understand? gives us that reset moment. Like, did you ever hear that story of like the woman who was making pot roast and
Oh
kept
yeah.
cutting off the ends of the pot roast and asking
Yeah.
why,
Just because
why?
generationally,
Yeah,
that's what grandma had the tiny
exactly.
pan.
Exactly. And yeah,
Mhm.
because like she did it because her mom did it. And mom's like, well, I did it because my mom did it. And grandma said, I did it because the pan was too small to fit a whole roast in it. Right. So I think the trap we can fall into when we're just focused on a quick fix, or I'm just going to get this software because my friend has it, or it's the latest and greatest, or I saw it on AppSumo and I thought it was really cool. I'm just going to buy it. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, but what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
What are you testing?
We've all
What
fallen prey.
I tell you, the Black Friday deals on AppSumo are
Yeah.
rough because I'm like, I want all the things. It's
Yeah.
bad.
But there's really like what you have to balance as the business owner is I'm at this stage. I have this
Mhm,
amount of revenue coming in. I have this amount of profitability. I can afford to be this thoughtful versus I
mhm,
can afford not to be thoughtful and I need a band aid. And like the rebuild phases can really take people out of selling,
mhm,
which is, that's something I'm always thinking about. Like, okay, so I've got this janky band-aided together thing going on and it needs a whole revamp. Like, how do you help people decide, like, actually, now's the time to do it? You got to do it before you go into your next big launch or whatever.
I think, you know, if it's really, really bad in its current form, then that's when I'm probably like, okay, we
Yeah.
should probably build something better in the background and then like one day flip a switch and it goes, this is just now the way we do things.
Hmm.
That is hard to do because it requires you to be doing two things simultaneously, like two
Right.
different experiences, run them simultaneously. And that can be really challenging, especially when it's just you where you have limited support. But more often than not, when we feel like we want to make a change or upgrade something or tweak an experience or process, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't mean that we have to get rid of the whole thing. It doesn't mean that we have to burn everything down because there is something in what you're doing that is working. It's about looking at it and saying, okay, what is working? How do I do more of that? And what's not working? And what is an alternative?
Hmm.
So, I'll give you an example of someone I worked with a couple years ago. She was a coach. And we kind of mapped out her entire process from the time someone says, yes, Caryn, yes, here's my credit card. Like, I'm super pumped. I know what I want to do. Awesome. From that time until the time that they are done, and then I think we did 3 to 6 months after someone is done, we just kind of said, okay, what's all the stuff you're currently doing? Well, I go into Dubsado and I send them this package and they sign it and they pay. And when that happens, they get sent an onboarding form, they get reminders. When they're done it, I review it, on and on and on. And all of that was fine. All of that stuff needs to happen. It was done pretty automatically. We might have tweaked some of the language or we tweaked some of the graphics to make the onboarding a little bit more direct for them in terms of understanding what they need to do next. But when we got to like the day in, day out management of the client, what we saw was, okay, I do a session with them and I record it. After we're done, I download the recording from Zoom and I upload it to Otter so I can get it transcribed because maybe I said something that was like really good and I can maybe use that in content or an email. And then I upload it to my client's Google folder that I've made for them. And then I email them and I tell them their video is uploaded. And if you just look at that as like a list of tasks, it's really not that much. It's like 4 things. But what you don't see in that is how long that takes because Zoom doesn't convert immediately. And you have to go find the folder and upload the thing and upload it to Otter. And then once it's in Otter, you got to go back and like search it for those gold nuggets of things. So I looked at her and said, okay, why do you need this? Like, what is this doing for you or for the client? Where's the value? It's like, well, the value for me is in the transcript I get because I may have said something good. Because, like many of us, sometimes we just say really good stuff. We're like, shit, I wish I
Hmm.
wrote that down because I sounded very smart. I said, okay, well, what's the value to the client? Well, the client sometimes likes the recording. I said, sometimes. Do all your clients watch the recordings? She goes, no. I said, do you know who watches the recording? She goes, no, I don't really. So we kind of looked at that and went through this value assessment of, is this worth your time? Because these are all manual steps. And she goes, no, it's not. I said, are all of these steps relevant to you? No, it's really only the transcription. What about for your client? Is this worth their time? Well, some people like to watch the video, some people don't. Okay. What if instead we hooked up Otter to your Zoom account so it auto transcribed it and it
Yes,
would
please.
automatically pull a summary? So now you don't have to do anything there. And what if at the beginning of every call, you asked your client, do you want to record this call? And they record it on their end.
Yeah.
You give them permission to record. So they hit the recording button. So immediately when the meeting is done, your client already has a copy of it on their computer and you don't have to
Yeah.
send them anything. They take ownership of that process. She goes, huh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We've now taken her 4 to 5 tasks to 0. And when she had a client roster of like 10 to 12 clients she was seeing every week for an hour, how many hours did that get back for her? And
A
it made it
lot. That's a
easier for the
lot.
client and for
Yeah.
her, right? So I think that's more the thing. It's not about, oh, I need to fix everything I'm doing. It's how can I identify what's currently happening and then looking at those and going, okay, where's the value in this? And where can I create kind of a quick fix, immediate relief that still fits within the same process? And where might I identify, oh, you know what, like how I'm currently delivering this content, I don't really like the interface of this software. Maybe I should look at changing software. Cool. You kind of set up a couple of tasks for yourself over time to then review, get some data, try some things. Maybe you get a software trial, whatever. But you're like, something will be done about this portion eventually. But now might not be that time. Again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's understanding what is happening because a lot of us too, I think, we don't actually know what we do day to day. We're just so in our zone that we just
Mm-hmm.
do it. So when you are forced to stop, and I literally made this client fill out we had a spreadsheet format, and every single thing she did or the client did on a day-to-day basis throughout the entire 6 months they were working together, we wrote it down. And it was like 175 lines once everything was said and done. And you're like, wow, one client, I have to manage 175 things.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we tweaked it, I think we were down to like 65
Great. That's
lines,
good. Yeah.
which is less to manage. And then, you can kind of
Yeah.
tweak from there.
Yeah. Where have you seen this kind of system thinking and rolling it out improve relationships, like improve the know, like, and trust, either before people become a
Mhm.
client or after?
I think it can happen at all stages because if you're really clear on, we'll use that same client example because this client is really clear about what happens as soon as someone says yes. That means the energy that they can put into that client when they start can be very specific and very concentrated. Actually, Cart, like when you and I worked together, there was one thing that you did that I still tell people about when you onboarded clients, and it was when a client would sign your coaching package, the email you would then send them would say, congratulations, I'm so happy you're here. Like, here's what's going to happen next. But you also said, here's what you might be feeling right now. And
Mm.
here's how to coach yourself through it. To me, I think because you understand what you have to do as a coach, that also means you know your client really well. So if you can identify for them up front where they might get psychologically stuck or
Mm.
mentally stuck or where they might feel their momentum slow, and then you overlay that onto all the stuff that has to happen just to deliver the service, that's where the magic actually happens. And it's in that layer that clients are going to feel more well held. It's not in, oh, I can do a fancy automation. It's
Right.
not that like, oh, an email trigger that supports it. But I think the ultimate way we can help our clients feel like we are taking care of them and trust that we are going to take care of them and trust that they are going to get what they paid for, which sometimes people don't get that. And that is a hard thing to be faced with,
Mm-hmm.
is if you can understand the psychological changes that they are going through and they may experience it at every point of your relationship
And there. Yeah.
and weave that in with the automation and the tech, because we are a human business
Yeah.
and automations may make us feel good and automations may make us feel like, oh, this is going to unburden me so much because I don't have to do any of that stuff right now. But really, all you're doing is just forgetting that it's a human who's going to be receiving all of your fancy automations.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't remember that, those automations meant to free you up can leave your client feeling cold and like one of many and not seen for who they are.
Yeah.
So how do we merge those two things is I think where this work then gets really fun.
Yeah. Well, and you're really talking about knowing yourself really well and being
Mhm.
really clear about why you're doing what you're doing and questioning everything in really smart ways. And then adding that layer of
Mhm.
how are we making sure that this works for the outcomes for the client and the business at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's
Mhm.
really all thoughtfulness.
Yeah. And I think one of my core values is this concept of curiosity over judgment.
Yeah.
Like I think to be curious is such a wonderful thing. Like my nephew is almost 6. Coolest kid I know. And he is endlessly curious. Like we always kind of
Mhm.
come up with like, oh, you're like a toddler, ask why. But no, that's my nephew actually does. And I think that's really the fun part because it's not questioning everything to be like, well, why? Why
Right.
are you doing that? It's going, interesting. I wonder what would happen if we did it that way. What would happen if we did that, but it didn't have that result?
Hmm.
What if we tweaked it this way? Or what if we asked them? Or what if we told them? Or what if we surprised them? Then what? I think my great kind of guiding philosophy in pretty much everything that I do is this concept of FAFO, FAFO. I'm
What's
going to F
that?
around and find out.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's how I do everything, right? To me, everything is an experiment
Hmm.
because I don't know. I don't know how things are going to go. I think there's very little in our lives we can predict with any degree of accuracy,
Hmm.
generally speaking. Now you may get better at certain things in your life that if I do X, then Y. But I was like, if I do X under B circumstances, then Y happens. But if I do X under A circumstances, will the same thing happen? So FAFO is kind of my big guiding philosophy for pretty much everything, especially when it comes to systems.
Yeah.
Because I want things to feel like they're guardrails, not like they're a straight jacket.
Hmm.
I don't want to feel constricted and restrained, but I do want to have some boundaries because otherwise I will burn myself out. My ADHD brain is like, let's do all the things.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to
It's
mess around.
like,
I'm going to experiment, but give myself a zone to do it in.
yeah, be on the groomed trail.
There you go. Let's
Yeah.
do that. I don't want to scramble up
Yeah.
boulders all day. I'll let myself do a
Right.
little bit, not too much scramble.
So what are you doing with clients right now that's like fun or interesting in your world?
Hmm. It's such an interesting point because if I look at, I was saying this to my mother the other day. I was like, Mom, I just want one day to be the same as the previous day because forget about all of my clients are in massive growth phases right now, which is typically what happens when people come find me. They're like, hey,
Mm.
what we've had so far
We're
has been
breaking
working
everything.
okay, but like things are starting to break and we're not really sure that if we start, if we turn the volume up a little bit, we don't think it's going to hold together. And that's great, but it really has reinforced for me over the last couple of months of working with all these folks is that plans can't really be rigid and goals. I think we have to change the way we talk about goals when it comes to the outcomes that we're seeking because everything we're doing is an experimentation. Like I have a couple clients who we were planning to build them a membership program because she was pregnant with their first kid and they wanted to build this in. Very successful business. We're like, oh, fantastic. Here's the next 6 months kind of outlined in terms of what we're
Mhm.
going to be doing so that you can have a mat leave. Well, then the baby was born like 3.5 months premature. And they were driving an hour each way to the NICU every single day
Mm.
for 4 months, 5 months, right?
Yeah.
So the plans, we couldn't just throw them out because the business had to keep running, but we also had to restructure it massively in the fact that they were now dealing with a extremely premature NICU baby. And what does that look like? And how are we evolving? And now that they have the baby home all these months later and she's still dealing with all these health things, is we can't what you wanted it to look like it's not going to look like anymore, and that's fine, but what can we take from that and what we wanted it to do for you, what can still exist? So that's been interesting, kind of pivoting every
Mhm.
day and then not throwing everything out every single time, which is happening with
Right.
another client who is in a big acquiring phase of like buying companies and finding out how really dissatisfied she was with the client base she had cultivated and the offers she was doing. But she kept putting herself in these situations where she had to keep doing that. It's like, okay, again, how do we keep what is working and get rid of what's not and develop that exit plan? And I think that's pretty much been universal with everybody is we're not burning things down. Burning things down takes too much time and
Too much
capital
energy.
and
Yeah.
energy, and none of you have that.
Right. That's true.
So how do we kind of keep what is working and develop an exit strategy for the rest that will still kind of ebb and flow with what you're doing. And again, the whole concept of FAFO has really come back with every single one of them, because they're all changing things. They're hiring, they're firing, they're coming up with new ideas, they're killing other ideas that they thought they would love. So coming up with this idea of, when you remember in like junior high science class, you always had to come up with like a hypothesis before,
Mhm.
and you never took chemistry before. You didn't know what was supposed to happen with these chemicals. You put them together. So your hypothesis would be, I think it will go boom, or I think it will not go boom. And then it would do something. You're like, but I don't know why. I don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
So can we figure out what a hypothesis might be? And then our work is not on making things go boom, but our work is kind of understanding why things happen the way they do and figuring out what levels and factors we can manipulate is more what we're doing. Because again, all these guys are going through all these changes in their business. They have no clue what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going on and going to happen tomorrow. But we are getting really good at coming up with experiments and figuring out what we want to test.
Mm-hmm.
Because either
Okay.
way, we're going to learn something.
Yeah. How do people know when it's time to bring in someone like you, someone who's all about the operations and the systems and stuff?
This is always a fun one. I think especially like in the kind of the coaching space is you hear a lot of, I just need to hire a VA.
Right.
So they go do that, but they don't actually know what it is. And
Right.
VA is a title that's made up and points don't matter and doesn't really mean anything. So I think my first step for everybody, if they have a team or not, if they're early stage or not, is you kind of look at the different parts of your business and says, what has to happen here for this to actually function? So if we look at like sales and marketing, what needs to happen there? It's not, I need to post on social media 3 times a day, because you're kind of putting your hypothesis in with the question.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, I need a steady stream of qualified leads so that I am as full as I want to be.
Right.
Okay. If that's the reason, if that's the outcome you're seeking from your sales marketing, then what are the things that have to happen for you to know that? Well, we need to look at results. Like we need to have some type of qualifying process. We need to be finding new people, like warm audiences, cold traffic, whatever it is. Okay. Of that, what do I have? None of it? Okay. I might need to hire someone to help me with that. Let's kind of do some research into saying, what have other people done? Or what do I think I need? When it comes to like the operations and delivery portion is, okay, sales and marketing is bringing me as many leads as I want. I have them now. Do I know what to do with them? What are all the things that I have to do to give those people what they paid for? What does that look like? What could be involved? Cool. Do I think that is working right now? Maybe not. Might need some help with that. What could that look like? On the financial and admin side, what does that need to be doing for me to feel like, oh, this is going so great? Okay, it's that. What are all the pieces that have to happen? And then you kind of look at that and go, okay, where is the biggest threat here? Where is the biggest opportunity? Because I've had some folks come to me and say, I think I need, a VA, an OBM, an operations person. And we kind of go through that just really quickly because we can do it in 2 to 3 minutes and say, you know what? Like, I don't think you need me right now because you don't have enough proof of concept from people saying yes to you.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense for you right now to invest time, money, and energy in building this beautifully automated client experience that over delivers on and on because you don't have any clients and you don't even know if this is an offer you want to keep doing because you've never done it before. Versus if you have a ton of clients and they're asking you for things and they're giving you great feedback, then cool. That might be a point where we go, okay, yeah. If you want to do more of those or add in a new thing for them to interact with, cool. You might need something in terms of operations and systems to just help delivery go more smoothly and more profitably.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not always your first thing. Some people need their first thing is different from what somebody else's needs.
Yeah. But with everything, like this is very systematic and it's thoughtful and it requires experimentation or like a gut for experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
think that's where people get a little scared.
yeah. Yeah,
It's like,
totally.
how do I experiment safely?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice to have someone who's good at experimenting on board if that's not something you're comfortable with. But I mean, I think so many of the hiring decisions for new business owners, bringing on contractors it's not thoughtful and it's not systematic. It's usually pretty reactionary.
Hmm.
Yeah. So how, like, if you were to give people either 3 questions or like something to think about in terms of before you seek out systems and operations, make sure you think about this, what would that be?
Mhm. Ooh. I think it's when I think about hiring, 'cause I did a workshop on this at a summit last year, and it was kind of this idea of how to be a better delegator. And
Mhm.
it's not about being a better task manager
Right.
and being on top of people. It's about making sure you and the people you bring into support are having conversations at the same level. Because I imagine like a pyramid, and the bottom level of that pyramid is tasks. What are actions that are happening? But above that is process, or process for my American friends. But like a process, that is what is the outcome that will be created by those tasks coming together? Like, how are you putting those together so that they are, you know, efficient, productive, profitable? Above that, you have more widespread outcome, that if this process is executed well, you could also call it impact. What is the impact this will have on my business? And then the top level of the pyramid is value. If that impact is achieved, what value does it have to the business? So those are four very different levels
Mhm.
of conversations. And we can come up, I call that the contribution pyramid, because each of those levels corresponds to a level of an employee, a person. A task-based person is what you might have in kind of an assistant level. Their entry level. Their job is to perform tasks. And the thing you're really thinking about with them is, are they doing it accurately and are they doing it on time? That's kind of
Mhm.
their zone. When you start looking at process, that's more when you get into like a coordinator level. OBM is a title I hear thrown around a lot at that level. It's like, how are things being put together more efficiently? So their KPIs or their conversations need to be more around, are things efficient and productive and profitable?
Mhm.
Not, is it right and is it on time? It's more thing. Above that, at kind of that impact level, that's more like a management level. Because, if you think in a traditional company, those people are managing multiple people and manage multiple processes, and they're seeing how everything is coming together. And then the value above that, that's really more strategic decisions. So I think the biggest challenge I see when people are trying to hire early on, when they're kind of making that jump from solopreneur to maybe bringing in one or two people or bringing in their next person, is they are so focused on the task level, that base level. Can you do these things that I think would free up my time?
Mhm.
And that's what they advertise for. And that's probably might be who they hire. But all the conversations that they want to have and the results they want to feel are higher level of the pyramid that that person is not really a part of. So
Right.
immediately those folks are going to be at loggerheads because you hired me to complete tasks, but you're expecting this, higher level. And not to say that person can't do it, but I do think it's being clear about
Yeah.
what level of conversation you want to be having, and bringing in a person who can support you in having that level of conversation.
Right, and then paying for it too.
Exactly. And being
Like if
able
you
to
wanna
ask
bring in
questions at that level. Yeah.
yeah, if you wanna bring in a task person, that's gonna be the
Hmm.
lowest level of pay. But if you want, like, as someone who's managing outcomes and profitability and doing the
Hmm.
longer term thinking and projects, that's a
It's a different
different
level.
level of contractor, right? Like, we can't
Hmm.
react our way out and just hire someone to take our problems away.
Hmm. Yeah. And often when you hire for that first task level, you're not going to free up as much time as you ideally want to have, because there's still directions that have to happen there. And sometimes that is where you have to hire first. Like, you don't want to hire at the management level when you have zero people there to do the actual execution, because that also does
Yeah,
not
you can't have
work.
too many managers and nobody doing work.
Exactly. And I think that's
Yeah,
sometimes where we run into trouble, when we start expecting everything from someone we've hired because
right.
they can do something. So I think it really is like, what is the conversation that you want to be having on a day-to-day basis? And it is perfectly okay to have a task-based conversation with people, but realize that that is what they're there for. And that is what they're there to execute on. And that's how you can, I'll say, mark them. Again, it should
Mhm.
be a collaboration, but I'll say to mark them. Their task level, it's like, are they doing it correctly and are they doing it on time?
Yeah, I think that's
That's
good to
it.
parse out. Yeah.
Hmm.
So then who like Tell us about who is your person right now. Who do you work with? Who do you love working with?
Mhm.
Who needs to know you
Uh,
exist?
um, I primarily work now with creative uh thinkers, creative agencies, because again, I'm such like a film and movie buff that if I had the skill, if I had the talent, Karin, I feel like I would be like an actor or performer. Like I'm such a theater kid,
Mm-hmm.
but I also recognize I don't have that. It's not what I can do professionally. I can do it for fun, but it's not a profession. So I really love supporting those creative thinkers because I do think they make such a beautiful contribution to the world. I love the way their brain works. And if the pandemic has showed us anything, it's the people who create get us through hard times.
Mm-hmm.
So I love supporting creative thinkers, creative agencies, anybody who produces something creative, whether that is art, whether that is event experiences, whether that is copy, whether it's language, whether it's video, whether it's poetry, whether it's books, whether it's designing something on a large scale, anybody that has a creative output and just wants to be able to feel like they can collaborate and they get to bounce ideas off. And that feels like something that moves their business forward and not something that holds them back or that it's like a pipe dream to be
Yeah.
able to come in and not have to worry about what's checked off and not have to worry about is my team servicing my clients, that they can still feel creatively fulfilled even as they have to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my people.
That
Let's
makes sense.
create some fun stuff.
Yeah, that's good. So if you could like put your stake in the ground and wish for things and make things happen in the world, what would you hope for in terms of like the vision you see for your work or the world or whatever?
Ooh. I think it's this idea that competence and confidence in being a business owner is attainable. I think there is so much information out there that we see and we're told is good for us. And we might choose to go down those things. And then we find out, oh, this is not what I needed, not what I wanted. I feel like I'm further away from my purpose. I don't know how to do these things, but I'm told it's good. I need a
Mm-hmm.
webinar. I need a book. I need a small group. I need an ascension model. Um, all of this, it's about confidence and competence. And we can develop these things, and systems and operations are a part of that. I'm not saying you need to be the person who needs to go out and, can go build a funnel, who understands the technology. No, I don't even know how to do that. I could probably fake my way through it, but I can't build a highly converting funnel. But I understand what funnels are supposed to do. I know what questions to ask a funnel person to make sure I am getting the best possible result for me and my business. I know how to judge whether or not something is working, and I know what I need to see to feel like something is working. Those things can be learned. It does not mean that we have to become an expert in operations and systems. I don't
Yeah.
want to be in sales and marketing. I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to, do all that stuff, but I understand how it works. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's that understanding when we feel like we can understand that, when we feel like we can go into a room and not feel like the small person in the room because we don't understand that, like that gives you such a confidence boost. And that is what will give you the incentive to want to experiment more, because you feel like you can build and develop your own competency and your own confidence. That for me is key.
And that will have a great impact on your sales, by the way.
There you go. See, it's all connected. It's an ecosystem.
People
It's a
love
self-sustaining
buying.
ecosystem.
Yeah. Confidence is very magnetic, as
There
is
you
confidence.
go.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So, cool.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Okay. Where do people find you and your things?
The best place to hang out with me is on LinkedIn because I'm a LinkedIn girly, under Nikki McKnight.
Okay.
But I also write FAFO, the twice monthly newsletters for creatives about systems. And these are
Love
for
it.
creatives who hate systems. Um, so I'm a newsletter girly in that, and that's probably the best way. It goes out twice a month, and it's more storytelling focused. It's not going to be emails that say click here to learn how to build a landing page. It is really designed about this concept of FAFO and how do we learn? How do we ask questions? How do we build this confidence and confidence in ourselves and in the way we think so that we feel free to experiment? Because It's only in experimentation that we get to find out what we really like and what really works and what lights us up. So
Mm,
how do we FAFO more?
I love it. Good. Okay. So get on the FAFO list so that you can lean into experimentation, which I think it's important to highlight. Like, being willing to experiment is being willing to live outside of the ideas of right and wrong, which many of us need to really embrace. So as you move forward in your business, remember, right and wrong don't exist, they're ideas. And we don't have to have them. You can have more fun if you don't. All right. Thank you for being here, Nikki.
Thank you.